Okay, we should get started. Thank you so much for being here today for our webinar hosted by Nalpeiron. My name is John Zilch. I am the Chief Product Officer here, and we are really excited to talk about 2025, which, believe it or not, is right around the corner, and how your team will be better equipped to sell in that calendar year. So, I know it's really important to folks. And we've learned a lot over the past few months in speaking with some of our customers and wanted to share some of those learnings back with you, but also offer some solutions on how your team can be more effective in the new year. So that is the name of the game today. We'll talk about that challenge. We'll talk about what's at stake, which I think we all are probably aligned on. And then we'll talk about solutions. So, how can we go about solving that? And I love doing this in November because it puts us in a really good place to spend a few weeks getting some of these solutions in place so that we can win in 2025, which, again, I know is really important to all of you who are here today with us. So, before we start, a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm on the product team here at Nalpeiron. Uh, you might hear me mention Zengain. That is our newest product that we're really excited to put out there to folks starting in 2025. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I've got about 12, maybe 13 years now in product management at various companies. You see them on the screen. But I think what's really relevant for today's conversation is that I also have a background in business operations, uh, specifically in supporting sales teams. So I've implemented CRMs, I've managed CRMs, I've managed other types of tools and processes, reporting for sales teams, and worked really closely with those groups prior to joining product management, or even in some cases in product management, having sales folks as customers. So um, I feel like I really know that space well, and I know what sales folks are challenged with too, which um, is something that a reason why I had joined Nalpeiron was to help in that regard. So excited to talk about that as well today. So, what is that challenge that we're talking about? Well, again, I've got a couple decades now under my belt of experience, and I've seen that sales role change so much. I think we are in a transition period here that's really interesting. When I started out, anyway, there was a lot of face-to-face, in-person engagement that was happening between the seller and the customer, right? And as you can see on the screen, maybe that was on the golf course. Maybe that was at a happy hour or at lunch or, to a lavish dinner, something like that. But it was really, close, close connection, in person. Um, and sellers were really good at that, right? I think that was an effective way to sell in the B2B space. Obviously, in this digital revolution that we're in, it's changed a lot. You can see this quote that I found from Forbes magazine, where that role for the B2B salesperson has changed from the happy hours, the dinners, to more of a data-driven, revenue-centric approach. And I think a lot of teams are feeling that. I think a lot of teams are still trying to make that transition in the best way, making sure they have the right tools, making sure they have the right really state of mind, and how they approach the job. So I want to talk a little bit about why that is and how teams can help themselves to getting over this hump, but also putting their teams in a really good position to succeed. I think there are three main themes that have led to this or are maybe leading that transformation that I talked about before. One, and we see this all the time, is Gen AI. And it's a good thing, right? I think in some cases, Gen AI and just AI in general can really help sales teams understand their customers, maybe build content for their customers, engage in a better way, and really just add efficiency. And you can see a lot of teams are doing that. So that's a big one. Also, as I mentioned before, I don't think high touch has gone away. The high touch engagement, right? Calling your customer, going out for a meeting when appropriate, right? Maybe if you want to consider email high touch, just sending that personal email to a client to ask them how things are going. But I think the difference now is a lot of buyers, right? A lot of customers really want to purchase on their own. They don't want to go through a sales, like frankly, a human being, right? We're getting used to that new world, a new way of thinking. So it's tricky, right? If you're a salesperson, we're used to having that high touch engagement to drive sales. How do I live in this world now where you can see 43% of consumers are opting for a buying process that wouldn't include you, right? And that's hard. How do I make my quota? How do I make my number when I'm up against some of these challenges? So I say focus too, because I think it's really important for sellers to say, when do I reach out, right? If the buyer isn't as or it doesn't feel that urgency to speak with me, when's the right time for me to actually reach out and touch base? So that's the second thing. And the third is automation, right? So that's happening more and more. Sales ops teams, marketing teams, customer success teams, trying to automate what they can across the customer lifecycle for their teams, to again improve the experience, for customers, right? So there's all of these things that are changing, um, right before our eyes, and the stakes are high, right? So you can see this quote that's actually quoting Gartner is seeing that spending on SaaS is actually going up year to year, right? Even though I know a lot of companies have been pulling back on their spend, some of this is fueled by obviously the advancements with AI. Teams are seeing where there's value and utility in that. But I think this slide is supposed to be good news. At least that's how it was meant to be. um, we are in a selling season, right? As we turn that calendar over from 2024 to 2025, we do see that companies, or Gartner is seeing that companies are willing to spend going into that calendar year, right? So that's really good news. The challenge is, right, lots of competition. Um, we talked about the challenges before and some of the way that the sales role is changing. How do we adapt to this new world so that we can actually take advantage of the market that's waiting for us? Okay, so we've already covered two of the three pillars that I wanted to cover today. We'll spend a little more time on thinking of the solution, right? So how do I take advantage of this market that's out there? And this is the way I think about it, right? So we talked about automation as being one of those big themes that's happening. You can call that a little bit of product-led growth, right? We want people to sign up for their own trial, experience the product on their own terms, right? Go to G2 Crowd, do their own, analysis on reviews. Um, Look at pricing on their own, right? Or go to a Reddit board and look at what people are paying for a certain product. All of us as consumers have the ability to go do a lot of that research and analysis really on our own, right? So that's kind of that green box of there's the automation side. On the other side of the spectrum here is human engagement, right? Again, it hasn't gone away. And I think that from the sellers that I've worked with and the ones I've really respected, they're really, really great about this. They're great about listening to the customer. They're great about just absorbing, okay, what is the problem they're trying to solve? What's the best way to solve it? I've been on sales calls where the salesperson just pivots halfway through and says, you know what, we're not the best solution for you, but I can point you somewhere that is, right? Um, which I have a lot of respect for. I think there's a human element to sales that will never go away. That's just my personal opinion. So yes, we're going to incorporate some automation. Yes, there's going to be Gen AI. There's going to be a lot of things that we do that make things more streamlined. But still, we want to be able to reach out. We want to have those conversations, even if they're over Zoom, right? We still want to be able to connect human being to human being. So what sits in the middle? We know our customers don't want humans to be pinging them every hour or every day even, or maybe even every week, right? Asking how's it going, I'm just checking in, where did you go? That's part of the human engagement aspect that I don't think buyers really appreciate as much, right? When there's no context to why you're reaching out. So how do we take these two worlds and what bridges them together? In my opinion, it's revenue intelligence, right? So I think being able to say, when is there going to be an event, right? An activity? When is there going to be a lack of activity that gives me a signal that I should reach out to this customer and do something? I should offer to help. I want to listen. I want to figure out what's actually going on with this customer right now, right? That we could have a healthy conversation around. And that's hard to do if you're just kind of throwing darts in the dark, right? If you don't have any intelligence that's been provided to you as an arrow in your quiver that you can actually use and say, hey, I think you might be struggling with our product. Or to flip it around, hey, I see you've been using our product more and more. In fact, you clicked on something that you don't have access to. I just want to make sure you're in a good spot. Do you have everything you need? Or you're up against your limit on seats, right? And I want to be able to help if you've got a few other people you want to add. Heck, maybe I even throw in a couple seats, right, for a few months. Or I throw in a trial for a product you don't have access to but could really help you. I can't do that if I'm just guessing. I can't do that. And automation, for the most part, isn't going to be able to do that fully either, right? What I need are signals in between those two things that tell me now's a good time to reach out to Jane or John or whoever my customer is, or even my prospect, to have a healthy conversation that they're going to appreciate because they know you're coming from a place with context where you can help. So revenue intelligence is going to bridge that gap. If I can get my slide to go, we'll move forward here. Okay. So some good news, right? I believe the anecdote to this is already in your possession today. I don't think you need to do much in terms of going out and finding this intelligence, the revenue intelligence that I'm talking about. We could even call it customer activity intelligence or customer intelligence. Call it whatever you want. But I think those signals around what a customer is doing and why now is the right time to reach out, I think it's already in your at your disposal. I think it's within reach today, right? And it typically manifests itself as first party customer intelligence and that data around that. So what do I mean by that? And again, in my experiences at business operations, I've seen so many salespeople that would come to me and or folks on my team and say, I'd like to know things about my customers that I don't know, right? Not so much what their title is or what their, the band, the budget needs. I can kind of figure that out earlier on in the process. But are they using the product? They signed up for a trial. I don't know what's going on in that trial. I need the product team or the engineering team to go do some digging and some aggregation and make sense of it, and then just tell me. Then I can reach out to the customer or not, right? I can make a decision. Do I want to actually engage and have a meaningful conversation? That's that bridge that I think, again, not a lot of sales folks are taking advantage of. Not a lot of sales operations teams are taking advantage of. How do I go get that data? How do I package it up so it's really, really meaningful? And how do I give it to the people who need it? And here are some of the questions that your team might be asking that they can't answer today, right? And I think, again, giving them the answers to these questions and prioritizing those and saying, here are some signals that are meaningful and really matter for creating value for the customer and capturing value for our business. Here's just a few of those questions, right? How do my customers use the product today? Are they doing the right things or the things that we typically see as a model for a healthy customer? If you're Spotify, I'll use a consumer example, right? Are they listening to songs every day? Are they creating playlists? Are they sharing? Are they liking certain songs, right? I'm just trying to use a simple example here that we can hopefully all that resonates with all of us, right? Those are the kind of things, those are the kind of signals I want to know to see, is this customer healthy right now? And of course, that's going to matter for adoption. That's going to matter for retention. It's going to matter for growth, right? Are they going to continue to use our product? And are they going to tell their coworkers about it so we can get even more stickiness inside the product? Maybe they're in a trial or a POC. You might even have a freemium tier. How are those customers using the product? When would be a good time to engage with them on taking that next step toward a purchase? It's probably not day one, right? But it may not even be day 30 on a 30-day trial. It's probably somewhere in between when they have that moment of success, right? And that dopamine kick hits where they're like, oh gosh, I just accomplished something, right? I just did something with the product that made my life easier. And you know those things, right? Because you work at the company and the sellers know what those things are. Again, you just need the intelligence to be able to take action. A couple others, right? Has my customer adopted the product? You did all this hard work to get them to sign on. And how do you know that they're actually using the product in those critical first 30 days? That's going to mean success for the company. And then would customers benefit from other solutions of ours, right? Are there other things that we might be able to offer them? Of course, that's a really good signal too, and that helps your your growth and expansion. Um, so let's talk about how, right? That was one of the promises we made in pitching this webinar. I talked a little bit about it, and I purposely made this a black box because I think it is a black box for a lot of sales teams. There's first party product data that's inaccessible, right? Only the engineers, only the product team typically, have access to it and have the ability to go on to that middle step, which is aggregating it, filtering it, prioritizing which insights, sometimes eventually I'll call them signals, do we hand to those sellers so that they have that as a tool, right? And I purposely made that a gold box because I think that's the gold. That's what we want to get into our sellers' hands are these signals. Imagine waking up at 7:30, whatever you wake up in the morning, turning on your phone, and there's an email that says, "Hey, your customer just did this really wonderful thing inside the product." Now would be a good time to call them and maybe pitch them that next tier up, or pitch them that close on that renewal, whatever the sales motion is that you want to achieve, right? It's hard to do that, right? It's hard to figure out the right timing to do that if you don't have the signals. So I think that's the how. The last thing, right? I promised I would talk a little bit about ZenGain. We're excited about this. Our own sales team is excited about this, quite frankly. Maybe more so than us, to be honest, which is a good sign. We are trying to, oops, sorry, there's a video here. We're trying to make it a little bit easier to go from the black box to the gold, right? It shouldn't be going into a SQL Server database and writing a bunch of queries and trying to package it or putting it all in Excel and saying, good luck with this, sales ops, right? That solution might not work. It might work for you. And when I say there's no additional investment, you could probably do that internally for free. You could also use ZenGain, right? And we're running this a beta for this product for free for the first 6 months of 2025. And you can see here, you're seeing the solution step by step throughout the entire customer life cycle. You can look at customers that are in that acquire phase or the adoption phase, retention, growth, and you can go as deep into the customer insights as you need to go, right? So are these customers adopting the product? Are they ready to convert from trial to paid? In this case, are there growth opportunities where we're seeing that this customer is using more of the product, and we might be able to go and conduct an upsell, right? So we purposely split it off into those 4 areas because they all represent different areas of the life cycle. And if you want to, right, there's even the ability to port it over to your CRM. In this case, I think it's going to be Salesforce, right? If I click that button, hey, the signal's so great, I'm going to create an opportunity in Salesforce so I can go take advantage of that over in my CRM. So we built this purposely, right, so that sales teams can get access to information that they previously couldn't access is just so valuable to them. And that's my offer to all of you as well. If you'd like to, we have our beta program starting in January 2025. It's open to all sales, customer success teams. I will say, though, it's very limited space. We're trying to keep it on the smaller side so that we can work closer with you and hear your feedback. We call it Cohort 1, starting in January 2025. Absolutely no cost, so no financial commitment in the future. It would be a 6-month beta, so you would be covered for half of your 2025, and we also want to make it a community feel, right? So you could trade ideas with folks that are just like you and have a similar set of challenges that you have. And more important, or most important than any of these things, we want you to close more sales, right? We want you to hit those numbers and help your team hit their numbers um, through this tool, which is really built on that same philosophy. Let's help our sellers. Let's get them more information. Let's get them those so valuable signals so that they can take that and run with it and do a better job doing what they do best, right? Which is engaging with customers. So, um, yeah, that's what we wanted to talk about today. We wish you the best heading into the new year, and we hope you can help. So, looking forward to talking to everyone. Thanks so much. Enjoy your day. Um, I do see some attendees here. If there are any questions at all, we still have a few minutes left. Happy to answer any you might have. All right, we will call it a day. Thanks so much for being here. Take care.